Right, welcome to lecture 5 of the DHCP series. We're in working with DHCP for version 6. Okay, so in this short piece, I'm going to go through the advertisements and the responses, or the solicitation and the advertisements for the various modes: Slack only, Slack and DHCP, and DHCP only. So let's get to that. So this is where we left off. 3 possible responses, advertisements coming from a solicitation from the client. Okay, so now let's start with the first, the stateless auto configuration. So this is the default option for Cisco routers, and I've just thrown in here because it's kind of in there these 2 flags that are going to get set or that are pertinent to this, M and O, and I'll show you in a minute what those letters are chosen for, but they're both set to 0 in the advertisement. So that's the piece coming back from the router. Remember, the advertisement is going this way, and the solicitation, which begins it all, is coming that way, right? So first we have this, and then the advertisement comes back. So it's going to be a pretty simple advertisement in the case of the Slack option. So the router solicitation comes out, says, hey, I'm going to make an address. I need an address. This solicitation isn't going to look terribly different than any other solicitation. It just says, I need to do this address thing. The advertisement coming back says, with the flags set to 0, among other things, this is going to inform the client that me as a router, you're asking me for advertisement information. I'm set up for Slack. So you better be set up for Slack. Okay? That's the message going to it. So the message coming back says, here's all the information you need to make an address. There's no other information available, right? So what is some of that information that's needed? I'm going to give you, here, I'll write some of it. I'm going to give you prefix. I'm going to give you the prefix length. And generally that number is 64. But I'm going to give you a specific prefix, right? That would be like the network address, the front end of a 128-bit address, all there. I'm going to tell you where the DNS server is. I'm going to give you the maximum transmission unit. You may have forgotten that term, the MTU. So this is like frame or packet size, right? You're going to need that. That was one of the subfields in there. And I'm not going to tell you where the gateway is. You got to know where that is. Okay, those are the things that are going to come back along with 0 flags. All right. Now, this again is the default option in Cisco routers. But if the router got set up for some other purpose, in other words, these flags got messed with, you would have to go back and reset them. So this is the basic command that says, I want a managed, so that's the M flag, or I want an other configuration. That's going to be the combos. If I need to set them to 0, you got to turn them off. Simple command. But here's the key. It's interface dependent. You got to be down at an interface. So whatever you're doing here is only good on that interface. If there's other interfaces over here, 01, for instance, they're set up, they could be set up some other way, and that's legitimate. So what about these M and O flags. The M flag means managed bit, managed address configuration. So it indicates the client may use DHCPv6 to retrieve a managed IPv6 address from a server. It's going to retrieve from a server a managed address. Okay, well, that sounds an awful lot like what we just went through with version 4. Somebody controls the addresses and they hand them out. It's managed. So it's important so that's if the flag is set. So if you're in Slack, you know that flag's not there because it's not being managed. The O bit indicates that other configuration information is available via DHCP6. So this means DNS related information or info from other servers in the network, right? You may get passed around. You're going to have to look elsewhere. This conversation is, if one of those bits is set, or if the O bit is set, this conversation is not over with the router you're talking to now. You're going to have to be getting stuff elsewhere. This is a screenshot of what you get. You know, we saw this kind of stuff from Wireshark. So here's the 2 bits here. I'm not going to zero in on it. I think this is big enough. There's this flag field, right? There always was this. And there's eight bits of flags. Some are reserved, some are proxy, some are the home agents, things we're not talking about here. Default router preference. Okay, other things that can get indicated. A lot more detail about the ICMP message. But it's these first 2 bits that are M and O. And they're just single bits that get set. Okay? So that's Slack. Now if I'm in stateless, so this is the one that looks like a managed address, right? So I'm going to have some, so this is going to indicate stateless operation on an interface. So the O flag gets set. So you can see this is basically the same thing without the no in front of it. So this is how you configure it to a 1. If you're going to take it away, make it a 0, you got to put the no in here. That was the previous command. So it kind of backward. Once again, it's interface dependent. So you'd have to set these at every different interface. This thing is telling you additional information is available. And notice the picture has changed now. Instead of our PC to switch to the router interface, somehow we got this server guy involved. Okay? So how does this stateless operation go? It says, all right, I'm sending out my router choice. This is stateless DHCP, by the way. This is not just DHCP. So my router solicitation goes out. Looks the same as before. Now the response comes back from the router. This guy is giving this response. The O flag is set, not the M flag. Right, so this is not a managed address. This is just another information address. So then the client receives that message and says, "Oh, the RA told me there's some addressing information I need, but I got to go to the server to get it. I got to get the remaining information I need because in the end I'm going to make my own address." But I don't have everything I need coming from the router. So we got to get the server involved. And I better then go talk to the server, right? So here he is down here that he's getting more info. Right? So you can see how this stuff is set up in the network. This switch is connected to that server, also connected to this router. So what did this effectively do? if this router is looking at some local network here, the router is saying some of that control of the local network I have passed off to a server that I've stuck on the network, or that the administrator stuck on there. So I'm not managing the whole thing. I'm not managing it all, but there's some management aspect being thrown in. And we're going to do that using a server, right? In the end, you're going to make your own address. Okay? It's stateless. You're going to make your own address. But I don't have all the information you need, so I'm going to give that, I'm going to get you in touch with the server. Okay? So that's getting both methods involved. So you see a little bit of the DHCPv4 approach, but it's still, you got to make your own. All right, now let's look at the last one, which is pretty much like DHCP4. And here's the address. So you're back at an interface. This is very interface specific, right? And only now I'm turning on the managed bit. And it tells the client, sorry, everything you need is in the server. I know nothing except to tell you go over there and handle your problems. Okay? Router solicitation starts the same. The response says, doesn't matter what the O flag is, the response says, everything you need is in the server, right? So this is back. The RA says, oh, I got a contact for the server for all addressing information, and then they talk. Okay, so that looks a lot like DHCPv4. The server is going to give you more than just a few ideas. The server is going to make you some very specific applications. Okay? So we'll move into the actual operation and so forth and configuring in the next lectures.